Right, so this week, the smartest institutional money on the planet pivoted hard into AI. An AI company just became more valuable than OpenAI. A 60-year-old pharmaceutical giant has just handed its 30,000 employees an AI agent as their primary work tool. And a peer-reviewed study has of 100 or 30,000 people has basically quietly confirmed what every knowledge worker is afraid to hear. So if you've been waiting for a signal to dive into AI and genuinely learn what's happening, what's going on, then now is the time. It's impossible to wait any longer. I think the ship will sail. We can clearly see what direction the puck is heading. So let's dive into it. Let's start with the numbers that matter most this week. So Anthropic just closed a funding round of over $30 billion at a valuation north of, and this takes a moment to nearly wrap your head around, but a valuation north of 900 billion, making it, according to Bloomberg and multiple confirmed sources, the most valuable private AI company on earth. It just passed OpenAI, which is valued at 852 billion in March. So here's what makes that figure land a little bit differently than the regular AI hype. So in February, only 3 months ago, Anthropic was valued at 380 billion. So it's more than doubled in a quarter. And this is reportedly its last private round before going public, apparently targeting an IPO in October. So definitely one to keep an eye out for the investors who are consuming this. So this is not a company burning cash on promises. It's a company that's projected its first quarterly operating profit. So investors aren't buying a story. They're genuinely buying revenue trajectory. So why should you care? Well, basically, because when capital flows like this, it changes what businesses pay for. For 2 years rather, companies bought AI to say they were doing it, just to be shown to be doing it. That era is ending. With $900 billion bet is telling you that AI is shifting from experimentation to full results and implementation. Companies are about to seriously pay for measurable outcomes delivered with AI. I think there was a news story in the last couple of days with one of the executives of Uber who was talking about how with their AI budget, they now genuinely have to keep an eye on that budget, and they burn through it, I think, for 2026 because they've actually used too many credits that now they have to weigh up. Is it credits or is it staff? And you can see how things are playing out. So let's jump into a couple of tools that are worth getting your attention for the moment. So Mistral Medium 3.5 and Vibe Remote Agent. So Mistral basically shipped 128 billion parameter multimodal model. So what does that mean? It basically means that text, code, and vision in a single model alongside something called Vibe Remote Agent. So instead of sitting at your computer babysitting an AI as it codes, you give it a task, it runs on Mistral Cloud asynchronously, and then comes back with a finished full request. So the reason why this is important to care about is that, as we can see, with AI agents, they're becoming more and more normalized. I think it's pretty clear that very soon, any knowledge worker is going to have to understand how to use AI agents, because it seems like for those that are still employed, of course, that phrase sounds scaremongering. It's not meant to be, but in essence, one is going to have to learn how to manage these AI agents because everybody's going to be tasked with actually doing so much more. So it's not necessarily the fact or the idea, this kind of paradisiacal idea that we'll all do less and be out kind of walking in nature all day. For sure, that might occur eventually. But I think for the first installation of this, and given this is like another kind of form of the Industrial Revolution, most people realistically are going to be more busy because they're going to have to learn how to use these agents. They're going to be expected to have agents churning over and over and over. So let's jump into the story about the pharmaceutical firm. So on May 20th, Bristol Myers Squibb, quite the name, one of the world's biggest pharma companies, a 106-year-old institution, announced they're rolling out Cloud Enterprise to more than 30,000 employees across every part of the operation. So research, clinical trials, drug manufacturing, regulatory submissions, commercial, everything, the works, bang. So their chief digital officer quoted the deal, "Most enterprise AI stops at the chatbot. The real prize is the untapped value that's still trapped behind decades of data silos." So I think we can clearly see how big institutions are going to operate with AI. They're going to bring it in on an enterprise level, and everybody's going to be expected to utilize. So why does this matter for someone, in a knowledge work role specifically? Well, Big Pharma doesn't deploy technology to 30,000 people unless it really genuinely works. So what BMS is doing at a global scale, in a regional clinic or local law firm or a mid-sized marketing agency needs someone to set up at human scale. So basically the gap between enterprise has this and the small business has someone to implement it is a big business opportunity right now that's wide open. So if you think about all of the smaller legal firms, all of the, small dental clinics, anyone that's in a, 1 to 20 person team in a bricks and mortar business, they have a desperate need for AI integration. So there's a huge commercial opportunity there, no doubt about it. So let's keep rolling through the kind of tool updates, because again, remember, with AI and everything that's happening, it's so vital that you actually understand. It's literally like imagine being a carpenter in Florence in the Renaissance and understanding that, hold on, these guys over here, they've actually developed 5 other tools that make these amazing ornate pieces of artistry, carpentry, and then I'm over here with just an old hammer and a nail, and trying to expect to still stay relevant. Obviously, that's never going to happen, excuse the terrible analogy. So let's jump into Gemini Omni, so the content creators unlock. So basically, from Google last week, Gemini Omni combines Google's reasoning model, its image generator, and Veo, its video model, or Veo, its video model, all in a single pipeline. So you can go from idea to a fully produced visual in one workflow. No separate tools, no stitching outputs together. That's crazy. That's unbelievable for anyone who wants to build, for example, Facebook or faceless rather content channels. Incredible, which is one of the money plays we're about to cover. This cuts production time dramatically. The quality ceiling on AI generated educational video content just went up again. So definitely something to spend 5 minutes checking out and making sure you're aware of it. And I think that's the thing with all of these tools. Of course, there's overwhelm, there's too much to look at, there's too much to get through. But if you just cut out a 20-minute period every day, even less, 15 minutes, where you just spend a couple of minutes touching in, learning, trying 1 or 2 things with the tool, that's the most important thing. So let's jump over to the hard truth. So this is the one a lot of people probably need to hear, and it's probably uncomfortable because that's what's actually ultimately useful. Earlier this year, researchers at the University of Montreal ran the largest creativity study ever conducted, over 100,000 people against the best AI models. 100,000 people, crazy. Peer-reviewed, published in scientific reports, part of the Nature family. The result? AI now beats the average human on creativity tests. That's crazy. Not a slight edge, a measurable, consistent win on standardized idea generation tasks. So we're talking ChatGPT-4, Gemini, Llama, they all outperformed the average person. But here's the other half that don't put in the headlines. The top 50% of humans beat every AI tested. The top 10% beat it by a wide margin. So the most creative, most original, most variable human thinkers still leave every model behind, especially on richer work like storytelling and strategy. So we can still see there is an advantage there, but undoubtedly it's vital to know how these tools work. So what the study actually tells you is that average is the danger zone, the middle of the creativity bell curve. Competent, reliable, standard quality output, that's the exact space AI just totally dominated, colonized, absolutely just encapsulated. And that's also the space that a lot of jobs and a lot of freelance services currently live in. So if your value is, I produce decent on-spec work, you are probably directly price competed by something that's faster and for a fraction of the cost. So the exit is clearly obviously not to panic. It's not scaremongering. The exit is to move up the curve or to become the person who directs the curve. Both are learnable. Both are what the next segment we'll touch on is about. So the money play. So let's talk about a couple of business ideas, 4 concrete ways that smart people are positioning themselves right now. So 2 are income plays, 2 are career plays. Most of us should all be dabbling in some way or another with these. So let's look at money play number 1. So AI agents as a service, whether it's, whether you're in a job and you want to, let's say, bring this to your employer and suggest it as something that you want to bring into the business, or whether you have a small business and you want to actually deploy these, or thirdly, if you actually want to offer this as a service to small businesses, one way or another, it's going to be so vital to understand AI agents and how to set them up and how to use them. So let's dive into it. So the market now is paying for outcomes, not for AI consulting. No one really cares about that. Ultimately, people want deliverables. They want outcomes. The version of what's working is picking one painful, repetitive workflow in a specific industry and then lead qualify that type of business. For example, inbox management for if I could speak, it'd be fantastic, for professional services firms, or monthly reporting for a small SME, small local business, and build an agent that handles that. So charge monthly, deliver the result. Don't pitch the technology, pitch the time saving or the revenue gained. That's the easy win. If you find a niche, if you have exposure to a business through a former employment, through a current employment, or whether this is something that you want to bring, like I said, to your employer, like figure out a clunky, awkward area of the business that needs resolution, create the agent for it. Between YouTube videos, between actually just asking Claude or ChatGPT how to do it, it's pretty plausible to figure it out, and then package that up, bring it to your employer, or if you're out there selling it, sell it, or if you're running an agency or a business, then obviously implemented into your own business. So the next thing is riding the enterprise gap. So let's say idea number 2. So the BMS deal is the template. The Myers Briggs, I can't recall how to pronounce the name exactly. So enterprise has agentic AI. So small businesses don't have agentic AI. That gap is where the money for the next 18 to 24 months is. So finding industries with enterprise big AI deployments like pharma, like legal, like finance, and then come 3 levels down. So it somewhat connects to what I've just explained. But if you look specifically at those industries, those verticals that have huge investment on an AI or at an enterprise level, like pharma, for example, and then whittling down to whether it's a local pharmacy chain, whether it's a small drug producer, these smaller, more approachable, more attainable opportunities are where to go. So a smaller version of the same problem for companies that have no IT department and they just have a budget to ultimately pay someone. So that's a fantastic way to tackle this, whether it's, like I said, if you're in a business, whether you're pitching towards a business or whether you've got your own one. So let's move more towards number 3, which is a bit more of a career play, shall we say. So become the results translator. So what does that mean? So remember the money signal. Companies are shifting from we have AI to now show me the actual results. So there was obviously a panic, the last 12 months. We got to get AI implemented. We got to use it. And now it's like, right, we've got AI implemented. Everybody knows the basics. Like we've evolved from just using ChatGPT as a search tool, but now let's have some genuine results. That means the most valuable employee in any organization right now is those who can connect AI output to a number leadership cares about. So not I automated the reports, reframe it to I cut a reporting cycle from 2 days to 40 minutes. Here's the capacity we got back. That's the frame. That's the important thing to sell, whether you're selling it internally as an entrepreneur, shall we say, inside a business, or whether you're an entrepreneur selling this as a service, or if you're running your own business and you want to even convey it to your team. So it's the same work, just different positioning. Once you have the nice to have is there, and it's now basically to make sure that things are results driven. All right, so let's move on to the very fourth and final of the kind of concept. So go narrow enough to be in the top kind of decile or decimate. So the creativity study that we spoke about is pretty explicit. So average is automated. The top 10% now are untouchable in terms of their creativity. So pick one domain where you can genuinely become a top 10% person, not broad, not narrow, the best AI focused content writer, for example, for SaaS onboarding, the best automation builder for dental practices. The top kind of decimal points of a small niche beats average across a big one every single time. So in a way, the knowledge worker, the knowledge economy over the last 20 years has been encouraged for people to be kind of jack of all trades and to dabble in a little bit of everything. And that's been rewarded because you can approach everything, you can stay relevant, you can engage in all conversations, you can get a lot done as a general project manager, whether it's with your own business, whether you're in a business, whatever it is. But actually counterintuitively, and maybe a little bit of courage needed, now is a time to become hyper focused, because otherwise you're just going to get outlapped by someone who's using the tool. So let's move over to, let's say, just implementing today a couple of things. So here's the move in order. So pick one tool from today, for example, whether it's the Gemini Omni for creators, for example. So spend 20 minutes just jumping into it, get a feel for how it works, make sure you get that sense of it, and then think about one workflow that you could possibly do with that tool. So whether it's a pitch to your employer, whether it's a pitch to a business that you want to work with, whether it's a message that you want to deliver to your team, just go try it. It can be silly, it can be pointless, it can be stupid, but just adding up these notches of doing some small micro task every day, as irrelevant as it might seem, after 100 days, just improving by 1%, it'll make a massive difference to your overall competence. You'll be shocked how it stacks over time and is so vital. So a really important thing to think about. So that's the AI kind of money and productivity news for today. So the facts checked off, no fluff, just get into it. So, if you've got any comments, would love to hear it in the section below. And just remember, 1% a day, don't get overwhelmed by it. That's the mantra here. We're all learning together, one little micro step forward each day, learning AI, and you won't be left behind.